Okay, so again, I'm going to talk about the Prophet Muhammad, but I'm going to go more briefer. I'm going to do a brief survey of this aspect of actually him, and then talk more about the Umayyads and Abbasids, because those are what ends up becoming incorporated more into the actual challenges to the West. Um, and compliments actually as well, which we'll get into talking about that. But Muhammad, he's born. The sources say that he's born in 570 CE. The sources that we have to work with, in the Hijaz, which is located now in modern Saudi Arabia. Okay, he was orphaned at a young age under the care of his uncle Abu Talib, and he came from the Banu Hashim clan or the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. Um, and he worked as a merchant. He married a widow, a woman considerably older than him, a wealthy woman named Khadija. And while he was married to her, that was his only wife, and they seemed to have a good relationship. Um, Pre-Islamic Mecca, okay, for Muslims, they considered all the times prior to Muhammad to be al-Jahiliyyah, the time of ignorance, okay, because that was before that was their pagan time, right? And so, but it was a polytheistic society, animistic in many cases, but also with Jews and Christians, as I was just mentioning prior. So there was exposure to Judaism and Christianity, and there was somewhat of a blending of these with some of the other Arab pagan gods. The Kaaba was a place of worship for the deities of Arabian pagan tribes. For instance, they had the god Hubal, a god worshipped there at the Kaaba, and it contained many idols in it. Okay, so this is the cube or the Kaaba, and here is the setup for it that Muslims now still go to, but without all the idols. Okay, so Muhammad spent many hours alone in prayer and speculation about life. So the story is told, and at the age of 40, he is inside of a cave, and the angel Gabriel, Jibril, the same Gabriel from the Bible, tells him, Iqra, recite. Recite in the name of the Lord who created man from a alaq, from a blood clot. Recite, and thy Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that he knew not. And he becomes stunned about this, and this is the story of his revelation. Khadija becomes the first person to believe in him, to believe that this was really his message from God. And he claims to come in the name of God. I mean, Allah means the God. And so he's saying he is coming in the name of the God of the Jews and the Christians. This is what he's claiming is happening. And he mentions in his revelations Abraham, Nuh or Noah, Yahya for John the Baptist, and Isa al-Masih, Jesus the Messiah. Okay, these are all a part of his revelations. The majority did not like his message. Anytime somebody comes with a new idea and they're saying that they're speaking in the name of God, typically the response is low. It always is that way. Remember with Jesus, we were saying that was the case. But those who followed him refer to themselves as Muslims, or the religion is called Islam in Arabic, meaning basically surrendering to God. Okay, and so that's these are surrenderers, okay, to the will of God. Now he ends up having problems to the certain point that him and his supporters in 622 have to with his friend Abu Bakr and his cousin Ali. They have to flee Mecca to a place called Yathrib, which is going to be later changed to being called Medina. And this is the Hijra, okay? And the Muslim calendar actually starts their date on this. So you know how Christian world, the time of Jesus, we say BC or BCE, CE or AD, either one, it's still referring to using Jesus as a barometer. It's this point of his fleeing that the Muslim calendar comes. And so they have AH on their calendars after the Hijra, okay, or before the Hijra, okay. Now, when he goes to Medina, he is invited to be a mediator between conflicting tribes. This is a kind of a typical thing that's needed in a tribal society. And where he's going to, Medina is about 15 days away by camel, okay. While he is there, he becomes powerful and he gains many followers for about 10 years. His influence really grows while he's there in exile, so to speak. And he essentially creates, from a tribal group, ultimately, a spiritually linked group. So in their society, remember we're talking about how Christianity kind of helped try to create unity where paganism, the Germanic tribes and the Slavs and so forth couldn't unify or get along. And the attempt was that Christianity could unify people. It didn't always do that, but it could to a certain extent. Here, Islam attempts to break away from the tribal aspect, and you'll even see in the Islamic world today, there's still this issue about tribes having influence one tribe over another, or the political rule. Even Saddam Hussein's Takriti, his tribe had power in Iraq. But the idea was to have an ummah, a global community. Eventually it'd be global, but this is people together based on their belief and submission to God. And the first house of worship then was in Medina and became the mosque. The call to prayer was set up by Bilal, a freed African slave who's famous in the Islamic world. And so here we have the seeds of the first Islamic community. There's these significant battles, which I'm not going to talk about now, that are really important to Muslims that lead to the development of Muhammad rising to power against his enemies in this, okay? And so through these battles, here in this map, this is the territory that ends up being secured by Muhammad relatively quickly, okay? And so these 5 pillars then that are essentially a part of what he's teaching is to proclaim the oneness of God, Tawheed, okay? Allah Wahid, God is one. Or often in the Quran it says Allah Ahad, God is one. And this is so fundamental. Okay, there's no Trinity in Islam. There's a scripture in the Quran that says, Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He did not beget nor was begotten, referring to God. Okay, and his oneness is really stressed in a way that's different. So with Christianity, there's the issue of the Trinity. Islam removes that, and in this case, they're closer to Judaism. Okay. They established the daily prayers 5 times a day towards Mecca. By the way, it's not explicit in the Quran to pray 5 times a day. That's in the writings of the traditions of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, what are called hadiths. Okay, and then but some believe that it's implied in the text. There is a concern for almsgiving called the zakat. And then there is self-purification through a fasting that they do during Ramadan. Okay, this is the Saum. And they can't have food or drink from sunrise to sunset. And then for those who are able to, they are required to make the Hajj, or the pilgrimage to Mecca, at least once in their lifetime. And so on top of that, there are articles of belief. Is that, again, the oneness of God, existence of angels, faith in the revelations of God, including the Quran, Torah, and the Gospels, okay, Injil, and also actually the Zabur, the Psalms. And then they must believe in the prophets and all the messengers sent by God, such as Moses and Jesus, resurrection and the judgment day, and a belief in predestination. I'm going to end here, and then we'll continue to the next